सो कैसा गाना था? लाइट गया, गाना बज रहा था। गाना मैं जानबूझ के सुना रहा था क्योंकि फ्रॉम देयर वी आर गोइंग टू स्टार्ट आवर क्लास टुडे। द टास्क इज टू डिफाइन डेमोक्रेसी, but we have read already so much about democracy, and all of us know about what democracy is. Then after reading democracy in last two classes, why we are going to try, or last three classes we have been reading only about democracy, and now we are going to define democracy. So our NCRT says कि इसकी जय फिर समझिए आ सकी क्या चीज है। वैसे ही पहले डेमोक्रेसी को पढ़ लीजिए। So we have seen कि how democracy is implemented, how democracy works. Today we are going to read कि what is actually democracy mean. समझ में आई बात? गाना क्यों सुना रहा था तुम लोगों को? So what is democracy? Wait for a few more people to join and then we will start. Any questions? Anyone? Any questions from previous classes or anything you want to ask? This is class 9 polity book. By definition, it's people's rule. In practice, it's party's rule. How to do time management. अजय नहीं, to the people नहीं है, of the people, by the people, for the people. So how is like how many of you are planning to appear in 2023? What about others? 2024. अतुल 22 में अटेम्प्ट अपीयर करना है ना, यू आर अटेंडिंग एनसीईआरटी क्लासेस, तो ठीक बात नहीं है। आयुष इन 24 कर लेना है 24। So we have people for 23 and 24 both. Good. Let's see what democracy actually is. Very good discussion. So this is a classroom discussion happening what democracy means. So Mary, like all of you, is saying, ma'am, first we spend time discussing democracy and then we want to find out the meaning of democracy. How ridiculous this is. First तो हम समझ रहे थे कि democracy है क्या, and now we are trying to find the meaning of democracy. But madam is saying that sometimes it's not how we reason in everyday life. We use the word like pen, rain, or love. We first learn to use the things and then we reflect back on the definitions. We first do not think what is a pen. We start using pen and then we realize, okay, this is what pen is. So, why do we need a definition at all? So madam is saying that when we need a definition only when we come across a difficulty in the use of a word. We need a definition of rain only when we wish to distinguish it from drizzle or cloud burst. जैसे सिर्फ रेन बोलने से यू नॉट नो कि इट्स रेनिंग स्लोली और रेनिंग हैविली, वैसे ही सिर्फ डेमोक्रेसी कहने से यू नॉट इट डजंट कन्वे द फुल मीनिंग. Like all of you, one of the student is saying, but all of us know the definition. Abraham Lincoln said it. Democracy is the government of the people, by the people, for the people. Why do we need to change this definition? Madam is saying, I'm not saying you to change it. I too find this definition very beautiful. But we do not know if this is the best way to define unless we think about it ourselves. That's the definition of Lincoln, but how accurate it is. So somebody is saying, ma'am, I know the definition. Democracy is made up of two words, demo and krasia. Demo means people, krasia means rule. So democracy is ruled by the people. But sometimes just two words are not sufficient. ढाई अक्षर प्रेम के, यहाँ पे दो अक्षर सफिशिएंट नहीं है. Let's see how the definition go. A simple definition of democracy. क्या है? Democracy is a form of government in which the rulers are elected by the people. Simple definition. Democracy is a form of government in which the rulers are elected by the people. Opposite to democracy, we see the army rule of Myanmar or the dictators like Pinochet in Chile. They are not elected by the people, or the king of Saudi Arabia. It's not elected by the people. So these are the examples of non-democratic government. People do not have any say that who will become the king there. But this simple definition is not adequate. देखो ये जो बॉक्स है ना बहुत ही मजेदार है. एवरी सेशन आई लव डिस्कसिंग दिस विद स्टूडेंट्स. So try reading these, and I want you all to engage and try to explain that what these quote means. These quotes are very powerful. You should use these while writing essays and all. If you can understand and use, even direct questions can be asked on these to write. So the first one, can anyone explain this? The democracy gives every man the right to be his own oppressor. Hmm. Anyone? You can unmute yourself. You can raise your hand and I can allow you to unmute. Hmm? Democracy gives every man the right to be his own oppressor. Explains the statement. Fast, please. जल्दी जल्दी आंसर बता. I will be very fast. या सुहाना. किसने हाथ उठाया था? Democracy gives every man the right to be his own oppressor. Basically, it means that you can choose your own. It's a satirical code. It says that democracy is no. It actually it wants to say that democracy is no better than dictatorship. In dictatorship, the dictators are appointed on their own. In democracy, you choose your own oppressor. Who will dictate over you? You choose. But effectively, there is no difference. जो एक बार प्रधानमंत्री बन गया वो ऐसे ही एक्सप्लॉइट करता है सबको. So democracy gives every man the right to choose his own oppressor. You can choose who will be your oppressor. That's the only difference. In dictatorship, you do not have that. Outcome is not very different. That's what this quote means to say. दूसरा quote पढ़ो. Democracy consists of choosing your dictators after they have told you what you think it is you want to hear. Second one, ये थोड़ा ज़्यादा मुश्किल है. तो अच्छे स्टूडेंट नहीं हो. So democracy consists of choosing your dictators after they have told what you think it is you want to hear. In democracy, this quote is about elections, campaigns. So here also you are only choosing the dictators, but the only difference is that dictators will come and say the things that you want to hear, which you feel good about, and then you will vote for them and they will keep on acting as dictators. Very good, suitable for current Indian situation. Man's capacity for justice makes democracy possible. This is a very good quote. These two are not that useful in exam, but this one you must remember and try to use. Man's capacity for justice makes democracy possible, but man's inclination to injustice makes democracy necessary. What a wonderful quote. Man's capacity to for justice makes democracy possible. We are living today in a democracy because we are capable of doing justice. We are not like animals where the strongest will kill the weaker. We believe in justice and we are capable of delivering that justice. That's why we are, till from the very first day we are reading about that one of the major feature of democracy is to stop the tyranny of majority. providing justice. But what makes democracy necessary is our inclination to just injustice. We are capable of doing justice, but all of us have this hidden desire to gain more for ourselves, do injustice. And this inclination of man make it very necessary that we have a democracy. Otherwise, a few people will become so powerful that they will do whatever they want to do. They will be masquerading injustice. The fourth one, democracy is a device that ensures we shall be governed no better than we deserve. This is a quote which was in news recently, or not in news, but was in discussion. One of the personalities on Twitter posted this, and then it become a very big thing. स्नो बॉलिंग हो गया, काफी लोगों ने क्रिटिसाइज और कमेंट किया. This is a quote very often used by the losers in the election. क्या कहते हैं? Democracy is a device that ensures we shall be governed no better than that we deserve. बोलते कि जैसी जनता होगी, they will choose similar rulers. So if there is a communal crowd, communal voters, they will elect a communal government. If there is a just progressive janta, they will elect a progressive government. So democracy in a way ensures that you can never get better than what you deserve. Whatever you are, whatever values you possess, you will end up choosing that kind of a government. So democracy is a device that ensures we shall be governed no better than what we deserve. Finally, all ills of democracy can be cured by more democracy. Again, very important, very powerful quote. Democracy has thousands of shortcomings, but to remove those shortcomings, the solution is not to curtail democracy. The solution is not to limit democracy. The solution to the ills of democracy is more democracy. Abhi recently, I don't know how many of you were reading newspapers back then, but there was a comment by किसने कमेंट किया था कि इंडिया हैज टू मच डेमोक्रेसी. किसी को याद आ रहा है? किसी ने रिसेंटली कहा था ना कि इंडिया हैज टू मच डेमोक्रेसी. So the solution of the ills of democracy is not limiting democracy, but providing more freedom to the people, providing more democracy. Now, this cartoon, NCRT is asking this question to a ninth class student, that why democracy is written in this way. This is an image of European American forces trying to hold elections in Iraq. इस तरीके से क्यों लिखा गया है? How? Anyone? What happened? You will slowly learn about this. That America, United Nations, has a lot of interest in establishing democracy in other countries. It's satirically it's said that America, after exporting everything, when they do not have anything to export, they export democracy to other countries. And in the disguise of exporting or establishing democracy in other countries, they try to establish the rulers who are favorable to United States. So what happened in Iraq? Most of you might have heard the name of Saddam Hussein. Now, America and other European countries, they accused Saddam Hussein of possessing weapons of mass destruction. Weapons of mass destruction like biological weapons, biochemical weapons, or nuclear weapons. They said that Saddam Hussein is possessing and using these weapons. There was a war going on between Iran and Iraq, and they said that Saddam Hussein is possessing this. He's a threat to whole humanity, and American forces invaded Iraq and said that Saddam Hussein is a dictator. We will remove the dictator and establish a democracy. This is what meant by export of democracy, satirically. So this image is showing that there is no democracy, but American forces are trying to establish a democracy. But if any of you have good scenic memory, you can probably relate to this logo as the logo of कौन सी फास्ट फूड चेन की कंपनी से मिल रहा है थोड़ा थोड़ा मैकडोनल्ड्स. So it's this democracy is an American brand of democracy, American way of democracy. This is not the democracy that people of people of Iran wants. This is a democracy which is forcefully established in Iraq, and you cannot forcefully establish democracy. The other way to look at it is that this symbol is a mockery of democracy. मजाक उड़ाया जा रहा है, डेमोक्रेसी नहीं है एक्चुअली, इट्स अ मॉकरी ऑफ डेमोक्रेसी. समझ में आई बात? डीप है, डीप. एनीवे, features of democracy. Democracy is a form of government in which the rulers are elected by the people. We have read this, but it raises many questions. Questions like, who are the rulers in this definition? It's saying elected. So what kind of elections constitute democratic election? What is a democratic election? Or what kind of election should happen so that we can call it a democratic election? Who are the people who are supposed to choose? Being elected by the people. What people? Who people? Can democracy deny some citizens this right? Who should have, and is it equal for everyone? The third is government, or the fourth or final one is government. So what kind of government is to be established after democracy or in a democracy? Or can elected rulers do whatever they want to do? Here we have been given a very good example of General Pervez Musharraf. He led a military coup in October 1999. I hope all of you understand the meaning of military coup. Military coup is when military forces topple the democratically elected government, and they themselves, the head of the chief of the military, becomes the head of the government. So this is what Pervez Musharraf did. He was head of the army. he toppled the government and did a military coup. He overthrew the democratically elected government and declared himself the chief executive of the country. So क्या कहते हैं, पहले मुशर्रफ अपने आप को चीफ एग्जीक्यूटिव बनाता है, and then he changed his designation to president. अपने आप, without anyone appointing him, he himself appointed. He appoints himself as president. क्या नहीं समझ में आया संजना? So he establishes himself as the president. And after that, he said, "Ki I will hold a referendum in the country that grant him a 5-year extension." He hold a referendum also. He asked people that, "Do you want me as your president?" And people voted for him. Referendum we will discuss later in detail. Referendum is a kind of election. So he asked a referendum. He conducted a referendum, asked everybody, and everybody voted yes or no. मैं आंसर दिया, लोगों ने कहा कि हाँ. He curtailed all kind of human rights organizations, media and all. सबको इसने बंद किया. And this referendum that he conducted was based upon malpractices and fraud. Although he conducted a referendum, he asked everyone that, "Do you want me as president?" But actually, everyone was forced by the military to vote for yes. So in August 2020, he used a legal framework order that amended the constitution of Pakistan. After becoming president, he changed the constitution of Pakistan. As per this, president can dismiss national and provincial assemblies. He dismissed their democratically elected governments. And the work of the civilian cabinet is to be supervised by National Security Council. Abhi recently, this was in news, if you have been following the newspapers. अभी नेशनल सिक्योरिटी काउंसिल को लेके फिर एक बहस वहां पे शुरू हुआ है. So he said कि whatever decision in our country, what happens, whatever decision parliament makes, only judiciary can interfere into that. Otherwise, parliament is supreme. He said कि whatever judgment parliament will make, that has to be approved by National Security Council. And this National Security Council will have military officers. So in a way, parliament is now being supervised by executives. So Pakistan में फिर election भी होता है and people got elected, but the real power remain in the hand of Pervez Musharraf. So do you think that such a government can be called a democracy? As per our definition, democracy is for the people. क्या हमने पढ़ा कि democracy is a form of government in which the rulers are elected by the people. So in Pakistan, everything is happening. There is a government which is elected by the people. But will you call this a democracy? Yes or no? Yeah, it's not a democracy. But why it's not a democracy? Election तो हुआ है, but it's not a democracy because elections are not free and fair. So the पहला जो point है, the first feature of democracy is that the final decision making power must rest with those elected by the people. Even though here elections are happening, cabinet is being formed, MPs and MLAs are being elected by the people only. But these MPs and MLAs do not have the real power. The real power is in the hand of president or National Security Council. तो हम क्या कहते हैं कि in a democracy the final decision making power must rest with those elected by the people. नॉइस नहीं आ रहा ना तुम लोगों को मेरी तरफ से? So in democracy, the final decision-making power must rest with those elected by the people. You understand this? Because of this, Pakistan of Pervez Musharraf's time was not a democracy. Even today, Pakistan is not a fully functional democracy because अगर तुम लोगों ने सुना होगा he Imran Khan made a speech and he said कि if I will be removed as a prime minister, I will be more dangerous from outside. Now, to whom he was telling this? Ki if I am removed as a prime minister, I will be more dangerous. So, yeah, what I was telling. Prime Minister said that if I will be removed as a prime minister, I would be more dangerous. तो ये किसको बोल रहा है कि मैं ज्यादा डेंजरस हूँगा? नहीं, to the public नहीं, ये public को नहीं बोल रहा है. Actually, in Pakistan, even today, military has a lot of say. Their democracy is very flawed. Military actually makes the prime minister there. Whosoever they want to make prime minister, they will make. If you are not supported by the military, you cannot become prime minister. So Imran Khan ने कहा now there is this current going on in Pakistan that Imran Khan, who was once favored person of the military, he has lost that favor, and in the next election he is going to lose because military is not going to support him anymore. And that's why he's saying this indirectly to the military that if you will remove me, I will be more dangerous for you because now I know all these things and I will not let the country function or you people function. समझ में आई बात? नहीं आई? They do not have a different definition of democracy. They are a flawed democracy. That's the purpose of reading this chapter. This is the purpose of reading this chapter. Democracy doesn't simply means holding election. Democracy means a lot more things than just elections. And this is one of the crucial aspects, that the final decision making power. Why do you think India and Pakistan keep fighting always? This fight could have been resolved, but you will see, if you will see the trend of major attacks that has happened in India, every time you will see ki India and Pakistan relationship improving, and suddenly after some time they realized that if the relationship between the two countries will improve, the military will lost its importance. Today in Pakistan, military is very revered because the Janta is living in fear. And when you are afraid, you want a strong military. If the normalcy will return, military will lose its might. So हम देखते हैं कि जब you remember 2002 parliament attacks, Atal Bihari Vajpayee was making huge progress. Even before that, Kargil war से भी पहले बहुत अच्छा एक प्रोग्रेस चल रहा था, एंड इट वाज परवेज मुशर्रफ वाज in India, and it was looking like situations will improve. But suddenly attacks happened and war started. पार्लियामेंट अटैक के पहले भी समझौता एक्सप्रेस वगैरह चल रहा है, एंड then in 2008-9 again situation started to improve, and again Taj attack. Modi ji tried to make a good relationship, and he went there, gave Saul and all. So whenever politicians of Pakistan try to take the control of the situation and try to resolve the situation between the two countries, military interferes, and attacks happen in India sponsored by Pakistani military. So in Pakistan, effectively military rules, नाम के लिए डेमोक्रेसी है. समझ में आई बात अब? Now the second aspect of democracy. Now think about China. China holds a regular election after every 5 years without any fail. Their military, Padre is saying their military wants their country to be in turmoil always, keep fighting. What they want for their country is not that important, but they do not want to lose the importance that they have got. We will discuss today. We have great speeches and quotes to reflect back upon this. Why Pakistanese military do what they do. Just hold some patience. We will come to Barton Russell's Nobel speech, and we will discuss why people are power hungry, why we do what we do. So देखेंगे क्यों पाकिस्तानी मिलिट्री जो कर रही है वो कर रही है. But for now, let's concentrate here on the second feature. So in Pakistan, in China, they held election every 5 years regularly, and they have a parliament too. Fingo Renmin Dai Bao Dhai जो भी हो, जिसको इंग्लिश में हम कहते हैं नेशनल पीपल्स कांग्रेस. They have 30,000 members elected all over the China. Some members are also elected by the army. But China में क्या है? You cannot contest election if you are not approved by the Chinese Communist Party. There is only one party, Chinese Communist Party. If Chinese Communist Party बाहर कुछ लोग आए हैं, पापा के कुछ दोस्त हैं शायद, और मेरी बहुत बड़ाई हो रही है कि दिन भर पढ़ाता रहता है, क्या करता है, बहुत मेहनत करता है. ये थोड़ा थोड़ा आवाज आ रहा है, बस सामने नहीं बोलेंगे लोग. Anyway, let's return back to this. Before contesting election, a candidate needs approval of Chinese Communist Party. Somebody is asking what Congress means. Congress is a collective assembly of people, generally educated people or learned people. So before contesting elections, everybody has to take permission of Chinese Communist Party. यहाँ पे कुछ ऐसे 8 smaller parties भी हैं. Chinese Communist Party alone नहीं है. There are 8 other smaller parties as well. They are allowed to contest election बट गवर्नमेंट जो बनती है वो हमेशा कम्युनिस्ट पार्टी की ही बनती है. तो नो मैटर who is winning in the election or who is losing in the election, there will always be one party in the power, Communist Party. The second is, since its independence in 1930, Mexico holds election after every 6 years to elect its president. मैक्सिको में भी हर साल इलेक्शन हो रहा है, but the country has never been under a military or dictator's rule since 1930. But in 2000 elections, it was won by a party called PRI, Institutional Revolutionary Party. I don't know how many of you have seen Narcos. किसने देखा है क्या? नहीं देखा है. गुड, अच्छे स्टूडेंट है तुम लोग. देखना नहीं है. इट्स अ वेब सीरीज ऑन Netflix. It's about drug lords and all. So in there is a scene ke how these drug mafias were used by the PRI to won the election. So in PRI or in Mexico, opposition did contest elections, but they never managed to win because PRI used dirty tricks to win elections. They threatened the government employees to vote for them. Teachers were asked or used to force parents to vote for PRI. Media was controlled. Booths were looted or shifted in the last minutes. So they use whatever trick they use. So क्या कह रहे हैं कि reading these examples we can get a sense uh, that we cannot. Reading these examples we get a sense that हाँ अच्छा, there are many problems here. चाइना में इलेक्शन हो रहा है, फिर भी there is no serious choice. People are not getting any choice कि किसको elect करेंगे. In Mexico also people do not have a real choice. They do not have any option. Election में वही पार्टी आएगी. And that's why we cannot call all these elections or all these countries as democratic. So second important feature democracy का क्या है? A democracy must be based on free and fair election, where those currently in power have a fair chance of losing. In a democracy, there must be a chance that those who are in power, they can lose the election. समझ में आई बात? In China, Chinese Communist Party is not going to lose. In Mexico, PRI is not going to lose. That's why they're not democracy. But in our country, why government is suddenly forced to take back farms law? Or why government suddenly, just in one day's protest, government rolled back the decisions of NTPC results? Because elections are going to happen. And in a functional democracy, there are full chances that the party in the power may lose. And that's why they become answerable to the people. They have to respond to the demand of people, otherwise they will lose. And that's what makes democracy functional. So in one of the classes, we were having this discussion that opposition नहीं होना चाहिए. Opposition जैसा भी हो होना चाहिए. In a democracy, you always need a opposition. We will discuss more about why you need opposition. Even though it's a very bad opposition, you need an opposition. Because the party in the power always be afraid that they can lose the election. The day any party become assured that they are not going to lose the election, the democracy will end that day. Now, third reason, one person, one vote, one value. Let's see some examples like Saudi Arabia. In Saudi Arabia, women do not, until 2015, women didn't have the right to vote. In Estonia, if you are, it has, Estonia has made its citizenship rule in such a way that people belong to Russian minority find it difficult to get the right to vote. In Estonia, if you belong to Russian minority, you cannot vote. In Fiji, if you are an Indian Fijian, somebody who has migrated from India to Fiji quite long back, you cannot vote. Now, do you think this is a good practice? This violates the fundamental principle that everybody must have the right to vote and every vote should be equal weightage. So, in democracy, each adult citizen must have one vote. Each vote must have one value. वन वोट तो हो, मान लो अगर इंडिया में ऐसा कह दें कि बिकॉज अंबानी इज वेरी रिच एंड वेरी सक्सेसफुल, सो द मेंबर्स ऑफ अंबानीज फैमिली will have one vote is equal to 1 lakh value and other people will have 1 lakh vote is equal to 1 value. So each member of Ambani family can vote for one MLA independently. ऐसा नहीं है. इंडिया में क्या है, द वोट ऑफ अंबानी एंड द वोट ऑफ अ रिक्शा पुलर इज सेम. वन मैन, वन वोट, वन वैल्यू. But here what's happening? Women do not have voting right. Russian minority do not have voting right. Indian Fijian do not have voting rights. In India also, some of the right wing, ultra right wing people, you must have heard sometimes, and many of you have been thinking about this, that Muslims should be devoid of their voting rights. कई बार लोगों का ऐसा, जैसे म्यांमार में क्या किया इन्होंने, Rohingyas were devoid of their voting rights. Buddhist. These things are anti-democratic. In a country, every person should have one right, one vote, one value. It's a very good cartoon. एक बार देखो इसको और पढ़ो, समझो what does this mean. Chinese model has confused a lot of you. In China, they hold elections because we will read later in this chapter that every country wants to call itself democracy, no matter how worst, how bad they are, no matter how dictatorial they are. Everybody now it has become a commonly accepted practice, and nobody wants to challenge that I'm Democrat, I'm ruling on the behalf or on the wishes of people. So it's a facade, it's a illusion that हो रहा है voting. Second thing, in the elections, they get to know कि who among their office bearers or who among their members are more eligible. Inter-party democracy type का. About this cartoon, anyone? It's a very funny one. In the prison, we have Saddam Hussein. We have talked about him. So Saddam Hussein's regime was thrown by US invasion. These people got the voting rights. Now they are saying at last one man, one vote. But Saddam Hussein is saying I liked it better when I was the one man and the one vote. He was the only man and he was the only vote. जो चाहता था वो होता था. Let's read more about Saddam Hussein. So the third हो गया. Now fourth one. Now we have an example of Zimbabwe. Got independence in 1980, and since then they have a party called JANU PF, the party that led the freedom struggle. So this is a very popular party, like in our country, Congress, which led the freedom struggle. JANU PF led the freedom struggle. Here Mahatma Gandhi died, but there Robert Mugabe, who was the leader of this movement, he currently is, or he was the president a few years back. So President Mugabe was popular, very popular, and respected also. But he also used unfair practices in elections. He controlled everything from media to opposition. Opposition party workers were harassed and all. Television and radio were controlled. So finally, he was forced out of the office in 2017. Now, this may be sounding very unusual to you. Why popul- a popular leader would do something like that? Because our perception is that whosoever is popular is democratic. Example of Zimbabwe shows that popular approval of the ruler is necessary in a democracy, but it is not sufficient. Popularity is good, it's necessary, is very much important, but it's not sufficient condition. Even the popular governments can be undemocratic. Very popular leaders can be autocratic, like in Russia. Putin is very popular, but it's not democratic. You cannot remove Putin. Even if he becomes unpopular, it's very popular, but there's no system to remove him. And how many of you know the meaning of the phrase rings a bell? Rings any bell? Or ring a bell? कुछ दिमाग की बत्ती जली. In our country, we are also kind of very much harvesting this idea of creating a very popular leader. But क्या कह रहा है कि in democracy elections are important, but it's equally important to look before and after the election. There should be sufficient room for normal political activity, including political opposition. After elections, opposition's role does not stop at elections. It doesn't mean that the opposition has lost the mandate and after that opposition should not say anything. कि तुम तो अब हार गए हो, तुम बैठ जाओ. मतलब you will hear this kind of a logic very often. In some popular social media platforms, that people has defeated your party, then why you are saying you have lost the mandate of the people, then shut down, chup raho, kuch mat kaho. But that's not how democracy should work. In a democracy, the role of the opposition, the room for normal political activity, I don't know how many of you have been to West Bengal, but I have been there and it's still almost the same situation, although it's changing quite a bit now. But when I was in West Bengal, West Bengal has this strange culture, and so people even not even talk about it. In West Bengal, CPM maintains its rule for about 30-35 years. And when that regime was changed, Mamta Banerjee came into power, hailed as a flag bearer of democracy. But when I was in Bardhaman during 13 to 17, it was very, very difficult for anybody to say that they support anyone other than Mamta's party. During elections, you will see that people are afraid to put up the flags of the party that they support, even though they are supporters of left CPM, but they will not do that. Nobody in West Bengal will publicly say their voice, their opinion that who they are going to vote. उस समय तुम ऐसा था कि तुम जाके अगर ज्यादा मोदी मोदी कर देते तो तुम्हारी पिटाई भी हो सकती थी. But now things have changed a little bit in next 4 5 years. In such a situation, you will see that the party which is winning will keep on winning. The throwing of bombs during elections, holding people hostage. पहले ही धमकी मिल जाती है लोगों को कि चुनाव में तो किसी और को वोट दे दिए तो उसके बाद कहाँ जाओगे देख लेंगे. So because of that, the party that wins keep on winning there. Such things should not happen in a working democracy. During elections, there should be normal political activity, including political opposition. People should be free to think and have opinions to express this in public, to form associations, to protest, and take their political action. If these things are not happening, there is no democracy. So recently, some of the comedians were arrested. Now that shows the fragility of our democracy. Although we have good elections, although we are voting and changing the governments frequently, people have that power. But on this ground, our democratic rights, democratic freedoms are being curtailed at some point. So, jab tak ye right to protest, right to take part in political actions, agar nahi hai, so democracy is not fully functional. Everybody should be equal in the eyes of law. So this is the fourth one. A democratic government rules within the limits of set constitutional laws and citizen rights. कितना किस पे कब restriction लगाना है, what kind of restriction will be put upon what kind of people, that should be defined by the constitutional laws, not by the party in the power, not by the wishes of any one person. This is a great example of people's resistance against or for the democracies. If you will read about this again from China. See, in China, in 1989, students were protesting for democracy, and Chinese government used extreme force. Like democracy चाहिए लो. So they started suppressing, killing, imprisoning people, imprisoning people. At this time, this image emerged as a symbol of resistance. One person standing against four tanks. कॉमन मैन है कोई, ही इज जस्ट स्टैंडिंग एंड इज टेकिंग हिज रेजिस्टेंस की जो करना है करो, क्या करोगे, चढ़ा दोगे. एंड रिसेंटली भी ये अभी न्यूज में था फ्रॉम हांगकांग. इन हांगकांग दे हैव मेड अ statue of democracy resistance, and Chinese government is now removing that from there also. So in a nutshell हम क्या कह सकते हैं? Democracy is a form of government in which the rulers are elected by the people, but it must have these four features. The rulers elected by the people take all the major decisions. Elections offers a real choice. The choice and opportunity is available to all people on equal basis. An exercise of this choice leads to government limited by basic rules of constitutional and citizen rights. Now, इसको करने की कोशिश करना खुद से एक बार. Why democracy? This is important. Democracy क्या होता है हम समझ गए, but why do we need democracy? This is again a very good debate between students, among the students. इनको कहाँ से शुरू होता है? We live in a democratic country. All over the world, people want democracy. Countries that were not democratic earlier are becoming democratic now. All great people have said nice things about democracy. Isn't it obvious that democracy is the best? Do we need to debate about this? Well, it's clear that everybody is willing, or all the countries, great countries, have democracy, so we should also have democracy, isn't it? Jenny is saying she is critical. That is the wrong path. Democracy असली में इतना कुछ नहीं. What has democracy brought to our country? Like most of you would have been saying, democracy से कुछ हुआ तो नहीं है. Democracy has like most of the right, left wing सब यही कहते हैं. Like people in our country resent democracy more. Some 7 decades of democracy and there is so much poverty in our country. So what does democracy has done? Raibian is saying, what does democracy has to do with all this poverty and all? Do we have poverty because we are democratic, or do we have poverty despite being a democracy? अंतर समझ में आ रहा है? Do we have democracy, or do we have poverty because we are democracy, or do we have poverty despite being democratic? I think the second one is the case. देखते हैं क्या होता है. So Jenny is saying, what does it make? How does it make a difference? कोई इससे फर्क तो नहीं पड़ता है. Democracy is all about chaos, instability, corruption and hypocrisy. Politicians fighting among themselves. Democracy में और तो कुछ होता नहीं है. Corruption, hypocrisy and politicians fighting among themselves. Who is caring about country? Poimon is saying that, so what should we do? Should we go back to the British rule, or we should invite some king to rule our country? Now this is what most of you are thinking, that we need a strong leader, someone who does not have to bother about elections and parliament, isn't it? How many of you agree with Roj? Our country needs a strong leader, someone who does not bother about election and parliament. कितने लोग? Jahangir is agreeing and Mona is not. What about others? Most all of you are not agree. ठीक है, देखते हैं. The role is saying that one leader should have all the powers. He should be able to do whatever is needed in the country. He should be able to do whatever is needed in the country's interest. That alone can remove the corruption and poverty from this country. जैसा कि बहुत लोग कहते हैं कि भाई ये मोदी जी इतना बर्दाश्त क्यों कर रहे हैं. There's so many, जब इतने सारे ये एंटी इंडिया और एंटी नेशनल लोग हैं, व्हाई नॉट मोदी जी इज थ्रोइंग एवरीवन इन जेल. मोदी इज अ वीक प्राइम मिनिस्टर नाउ. वी स्टार्टेड विथ अ स्ट्रांग प्राइम मिनिस्टर. सो मोदी जी सबको जेल जेल क्यों नहीं भेज देते हैं. Someone shouted कि that's dictatorship. One person having all the power in his hand, not caring for election and parliament is not democracy, it's dictatorship. If this person gets all the power, what if this person himself turns into a corrupt person? What he started using all these powers for his or his family's gain. Rhodes has a point. She's saying that we will elect an honest person like Modi ji, who has no family, or Yogi ji, who is very honest. He doesn't have any lacking. वो corruption करेंगे भी तो किसके लिए करेंगे? तो भाई योगी आदमी है. So we will elect someone like these people, very honest and strong leaders. Now, Hoi has a very good point. Now you agree with Rose? We can have a good person, right? Talvin is saying we need a leader like Anil Kapoor. Rose का point ठीक है ना? अब we can have a honest person who can have all the power. नहीं. Now how many should agree with Rose? अभी भी तुम लोग को रोज पसंद नहीं है. Hoi is saying that you are comparing the real democracy with an ideal dictatorship. क्या कर रहे हैं? You are comparing a real democracy with ideal dictatorship. You're saying we need a dictator who is all good, all powerful, all honest. So even if in democracy you get all good, all powerful, all good people, all honest people, even democracy will be better, even better than dictatorship. So you cannot compare the real thing with the ideal thing. So he's saying, so go and check back the record of the dictators in real life. In real life, we have dictators like Hitler, Mussolini. We read about Robert Mugabe. We have example of Stalin. And all these dictators have left a corrupt, selfish, and brutal past. So in reality, dictatorship is even worse than the real democracy. Even the corrupt democracy is better than the real life, real records of dictatorship. There is a very good book. Now, these topics I'm taking in so much detail because you will be asked questions around these in interviews. You will be asked questions around these in mains, especially in essays. You need to have very good clarity and you need to have such kind of expression. Comparing real democracy with an ideal democracy, discussing about the real life of the dictators. So there is this wonderful book, Fascism of Warning, by Madeleine Albright, an American author. She calls she called these the rise of ultra right wing dictatorial leaders throughout the world as the spiritual successors of Hitler and Mussolini. मुझे बहुत अच्छा लगा ये फ्रेज उसके बुक में. ये लोग जो ऑल पावरफुल बनना चाहते हैं, चाहे वो पुतिन हो, चाहे वो एट सम पॉइंट वेरी कंट्रोवर्शियली बट यस मोदी जी, चाहे हमारे ऑल पावरफुल योगी जी, जहां पे कि पावर को एक आदमी के हाथ में कंसंट्रेट करने की कोशिश की जा रही है, या कोई चाहता है सारा पावर खुद अज्यूम कर लेना. In this book, she writes that these are the warnings of fascism coming. We will discuss about what fascism means. For now, you can just understand it's another form of dictatorship. So, dictatorship mixed with nationalism. देश के लिए कर रहे हैं, उसको fascism बोलते हैं. It was a brand of dictatorship developed by Mussolini. You know Hitler as a dictator, but when you will read about Mussolini, he surpassed his cruelty. तो कहते हैं कि आज के जो लीडर्स हैं ग्लोबली, दे आर स्पिरिचुअल सक्सेसर्स ऑफ हिटलर एंड मुसोलिनी. दे हैव they have kept the core ideologies of these people alive. Who is saying कि what's the worst? Once you appoint such a person thinking कि he might be very honest, but once he becomes corrupt, you cannot get rid of them. In democracy, at least you have this much power that if you made a mistake, you can change the government. In dictatorship, if once you are wrong, you are wrong. तो अब वो पता नहीं कब हटेगा. Madam Lingdo has a point to make here. She says that one of the best feature of democracy is that no matter what, we can say whatever we want to say in a democracy. But I did feel that you all wanted to speak your mind and you are free to speak up. But democracy is not all good. There are many arguments against democracy. क्या क्या arguments है? First, democracy leads to instability. Leaders keep changing. Nobody has a vision. हमारे यहाँ क्या होता है? Everybody is looking for short-term goal. Everybody is looking for winning the next election. So they make promises that I will do this, I will do this, and I will do this based upon the election manifesto. They do not do anything. All the works will be done in the last year of the election. Nobody has a long vision because to build anything takes very long time. But you know that even if I will start making a infrastructure project which will be made in 30 years, maybe some other party will be in the power and they will get all the credit. So nobody takes a long-term vision. They want to do these short things. So leaders keep changing in a democracy that leads to instability. Democracy is all about competition and power play. There is no scope for morality. Nowadays we see that everybody is just trying to win by whatever method they can win, by hook and crook. It has lost all the moral ground. The third thing is so many people have to be consulted in democracy that it leads to delays. You see, once हमने पढ़ा था last time we were reading about that law, Domestic Violence Act. You see how many years it took. It started in 90s. They started demanding for it in 90s, and then in 2006 they were able to get it. Because we are in democracy, it takes so much time. Every decision gets delayed. Elected leaders do not know the best interest of the people. It leads to bad decisions. Now, even if we elect people in democracy, who, what is the guarantee that the leaders who are elected, they actually know that what is in the best interest of the people? Finance minister has presented the budget and people are debating that this budget is not good for the country. Some people are saying it's bad for the country. Some people it's very good for the country. So what's the guarantee that elected people actually know that what their people want or what is in their best interest? The fifth point against democracy is that it leads to corruption. The sixth is ordinary people do not know what is good for them. It's not just about politician. Even we do not know that what we want, what is good for our interest. People take money to give votes. So 6 points against democracy. But if you will look closely, these arguments are not just about democracy. These things can happen in any form of government. Misuse of the power can happen in any form of the government. क्या कहते हैं कि democracy is not a magical solution to all the problems. But democracy as a form of government ensures that people take their own decision. This is the one guarantee that democracy assures. It doesn't guarantee the decisions will be good. Democracy में गलती होगी, but there are chances to improve upon those bad decisions. क्या कह रहे हैं कि यहाँ पे रियल क्वेश्चन ये नहीं है कि डेमोक्रेसी अच्छी है या बुरी है. The real question is democracy better than other forms of government that are there for us to choose from? Do we have any better alternative of a democratic government? Democracy has its flaws, but what other options do we have? देखते हैं arguments for democracy. चाइना में क्या होता है, बहुत खतरनाक फेमिन आता है 1958 to 1961. You will read about Chinese history later. In China, there were two major revolutions or reform movements started by Mao. One is called as the Great Leap Forward, and another is known as the Cultural Revolution. In these two reformist movements, Mao tried to revolutionize the Chinese society. He tried to change everything that was there. The way people used to live, the way people used to do work, the people used to worship. And because of his policies, एक बार क्या क्या माओ ने, he said कि these sparrows, birds, are destroying the crops. They are eating the crops. And at that time, China was a poor country. So Mao said ki whosoever will be killing these birds, they will be rewarded. And people started killing these birds. They killed this bird in such a huge number that sparrows got almost extinct. Now, these sparrows used to eat the insects as well. Because there are no insects, the ecological balance got disturbed. And the crop in China started to get destroyed. China faced massive famine during 58 to 61. Nearly 3 crore people died during this famine. India was also suffering from such problem, but our situation didn't become so bad. People didn't died in that number because we had a democratic government, and the democracy, because of the democracy, government was forced to respond to the food security in a way that Chinese government didn't. Our government has to beg, borrow, steal, make provisions for the food from anywhere in the world. But in China, government was not bothered. Mao was at the peak of his popularity. He thought कि देख लेंगे जो होगा मुझे क्या होने वाला है. So he even doubled down on its policies. कुछ इकोनॉमिस्ट कहते हैं कि no large scale famine has ever taken place in an independent democratic country. Even in China, if they would have multi-party elections, opposition party and free press would have criticized the government, and they would have probably saved some people to die in the famine. Like in India, is initially when migrants started to the work, laborers started to migrate on foot towards UP and Bihar. If there would not have been independent media, if there would not have been opposition, if there would not have been NGOs, social workers, and all, nobody would have cared for them. Government till the very last kept on saying कि कोई नहीं है सड़क पे, कोई नहीं है सड़क पे. But ultimately they had to take step, and many state governments started sending money to the migrants because of opposition. क्या कहते हैं, democracy is better than any other form of government in responding to the needs of people. The first argument in favor of democracy is it is more accountable form of government. Here the rulers are responsible, answerable to the people. If they will not respond to the needs of the people, people will remove them. So they have to be accountable. The second feature is democracy improves the quality of decision making. Yes, democracy leads to delays. It goes through a long process of consultation and discussions. But in the end, what we get is a better decision making, better rules. Like what happened during Farms Act. Government tried to bring that in a hurry without discussion. It failed. So sometimes delays are better than creating chaos, letting people to die. So democracy accepts this. Yes, I am slow, but I make better decisions. Democracy provides methods to deal with differences and conflicts. Think about a country so diverse as India. If we would not have democracy, it was not possible for such a diverse country to remain united. Why do people of Tamil Nadu are still a part of Union of India, or people of Bihar are still a part of Union of India? Tamil Nadu or Maharashtra can say that, see, we are the richest one. If we were, if you leave us on our own, we can be a very independent or developed country. We can give competition to any other developed country. Because we are a part of India, we have to pay taxes for other countries, and we are suffering for that. We are compensating for other poor states. Bihar likewise can say, "Kisi, you are not doing anything for me. Give me the independence, and I will do whatever I want to do." But these countries, these states are not saying so, because everybody has this sense that they can send their representative into the parliament, and whosoever is making laws there is their representative. It's also thinking about them. So democracy gives us a method to deal with differences. Similarly, you can think on the lines of caste, class, religion. In a diverse country like India, democracy keeps our country together. And now, finally, the most important point, saying it's not about what democracy does to the government. What kind of government will be formed, that's a secondary discussion. The most important point is ki what democracy does to the citizens. Democracy enhances the dignity of the citizens. In a democratic country, because you live in a democracy, you can demand that you have certain rights. You can demand that police cannot arrest you whenever they want to arrest, or however they want to arrest. You can demand that an IAS or a politician should work for your well-being. Your dignity cannot be compromised. It's only because you live in a democracy. If you're living in Saudi Arabia, बोलेगा king कि चलो तो सो जागो तो जागो. They will tell you to wear something you have to wear. They will tell you not to wear that thing you will not have to. So only because we live in a democracy, we have dignity. Democracy enhances the dignity of citizens. And finally, democracy is better than other forms of government because it allows us to correct its own mistakes. We have discussed this. यहाँ आप गलत भी डिसीजन लेते हो, आप उसको चेंज कर सकते हो. You have that option. In other systems, you don't have that option. Finally, the broader meaning of democracy. Democracy is not just about elections or having the government, forming government. See, the kind of democracy that we live in is called as representative democracy. It says rulers should be elected by the people. But it's effect in any modern democracy, big countries, it's not possible that people can directly elect people, or the people can directly participate in making laws. जैसे कि the citizen does not have the time, desire or skill to take part in all decisions. एक एक लॉ पे हमसे पूछा जाए कि ये करें कि नहीं करें, और फिर उसके बाद इंडिया में हर आदमी से पूछा जाए. इट्स नॉट पॉसिबल. जैसे कि अभी बजट बनाना है और उसके लिए सबसे बोला जाए कि आओ सब मिलकर बजट बनाते हैं. It's not possible. And that's why we choose a representative democracy, where we give our power to someone else to make laws, rules on our behalf. But this does not allow us to distinguish between a democracy and a good democracy. I hope you remember. कौन लोग इसमें से कितने लोगों को पहचान सकते हैं? This is Nehru. Who is this? Anyone? किसी को नहीं पहचान में आ रहा है? हाँ, लाल बहादुर शास्त्री. गुड. ट्राई टू रिकॉग्नाइज. ये अटल बिहारी वाजपेयी हैं, ये इंदिरा गांधी हैं. अच्छा, तुम लोगों को एक ट्रिक बताऊं. Do you know how many of you remember the name of all the prime ministers of India? पटेल नहीं है उसमें. These are all the prime ministers of India. किसी को याद है? पटेल नहीं है उस फोटो में. बताओ सही चल. एक ट्रिक बताता हूँ याद करने का. चलो, जस्ट टेलिंग यू दैट कई दिनों से कि ट्रिक बताऊंगा. हम्म. एक मिनट रुको. वेट फॉर अ सेकंड. बस 3 कॉपियां हैं. आई थिंक आई हैव shown this copies in some other class as well. The 3 copies I bought when I started my UPSC preparation. This was still with me. कहीं date वेट लिखा है क्या मैंने? So this one copy is for tricks to remember, like the things I want to memorize. All those things are here in this copy. In my 2017 attempt, I was reading one page of this copy and I got 2 questions from the same page. This one copy is of word meanings. I asked you all to write the word meanings. सबको मैं बोलता हूँ तो ये इसमें सिर्फ word meanings है. After writing, I think कितना है 20-25 pages के बाद I thought कि now I don't need to read any more word meanings. शायद क्लियर हो गया. इसमें बहुत सारे छोटे छोटे वर्ड लिखे हुए हैं. जैसे व्हाट इज द मीनिंग ऑफ पैट्रोनेज. टुडे इफ यू आस्क मी पैट्रोनेज, इट्स लाइक कि ये भी किसी को नहीं पता है. हाउ एनीबॉडी कैन नॉट नो पैट्रोनेज. एडहेयर, टग, परवेसिव, वेंजेंस, subversive, spree, stashed, unition, illicit, counterfeit, concealment, holocaust, ignominious, extradition, coronation, flew. These are all the word meanings from the newspaper. Now I have not read the Hindi meaning of this. ये सब ऐसा है कि they are written and I have made sentences from these words. Then I have tried to memorize those. So हर दिन का टास्क होता था कि जो लिखा है वो याद भी हो जाए. Right. This is the second copy, and this one is the precious one. You can read it. नहीं दिखेगा. नहीं दिखेगा. Right. दिख रहा होगा शायद. हाँ, यहाँ से दिख रहा है. Written Mahatma Gandhi को पर. These are the letters to Gandhi. So my notebook. Letters to Gandhi. Small experiment. तो तुम लोगों को ट्रिक दिखाता हूँ कुछ जो मैंने during my preparation I have made. कहाँ गया? कहानी ऐसी है. पहले कहानी सुन लो कि अचानक नेहरू के गुजरने का सदमा लाल बहादुर सह ना सके। याद करने की कोशिश करना मेरे साथ साथ। कहाँ जाते हैं? अचानक, अचानक, you can write this down, those who know Hindi, otherwise those who do not know can translate and try to write. So अचानक नेहरू के गुजरने का सदमा लाल बहादुर सह न सके और वह भी गुजर गए। फर्स्ट लाइन क्या है कि अचानक नेहरू के गुजरने, नेहरू डाइड सडनली, सो नेहरू के गुजरने का सदमा लाल बहादुर सह न सके और वह भी गुजर गए। So we have three prime ministers here. First Nehru, then गुलजारी लाल नंदा became temporary, कार्यवाहक जिसको बोलते हैं, temporary prime minister, working prime minister. Then Lal Bahadur became prime minister and he also died. So again Guljari Lal Nanda became prime minister. So first four prime ministers, Nehru, Guljari Lal Nanda, Lal Bahadur Shastri, again Guljari Lal Nanda. तो अचानक नेहरू के गुजर जाने का सदमा लाल बहादुर सह ना सके और वह भी गुजर गए। दूसरा क्या है, इस दुख की घड़ी में इंदिरा ने देश को संभाला। इंदिरा ने देश को संभाला। सो इंदिरा गांधी इज द फिफ्थ एंड द सिक्स्थ नंबर इज देसाई, देशमुख, सॉरी देसाई नहीं, सॉरी, अरे देसाई, मुरारजी देसाई। द सिक्स्थ वन इज मुरारजी देसाई। इंदिरा ने देश को संभाला। थर्ड वन इज सरकार चलाने में चौधरी चरण सिंह ने इंदिरा की पूरी मदद की। सो आफ्टर देसाई, चौधरी चरण सिंह एंड अगेन केम इंदिरा। सरकार चलाने में चौधरी चरण सिंह ने इंदिरा की पूरी मदद की। ऊपर से देखो तो नेहरू गुजर गए, इंदिरा ने देश को संभाला और चरण सिंह ने इंदिरा की फिर मदद की। एक्चुअली में ही डिडंट कोऑपरेटेड, बट दिस इज जस्ट अ स्टोरी। एक दिन इंदिरा की अचानक हत्या कर दी गई और उनके बेटे राजीव ने गवर्नमेंट संभाली। इंदिरा गांधी died suddenly and on the 9th November राजीव गांधी became prime minister. तो एक दिन इंदिरा की अचानक हत्या कर दी गई और उनके बेटे राजीव ने सरकार संभाली। वो कई बार दिस इज फनी वन, वो कई बार अपनी माँ के अंतिम संस्कार की वीडियो वीसीपी पे देखकर दुखी हो जाते थे। राजीव गांधी क्या होते थे, वीसीपी पे, आई होप मेनी ऑफ यू हैव हर्ड द नेम वीसीपी। तो कई बार वो अपनी माँ के दुख का वीडियो ऐसा वीसीपी पे देखते थे और वीसीपी पे देखकर दुखी हो जाते थे। Now this VCP is VP Singh, C is Chandrasekhar and P is PV Narasimha Rao. So after Rajiv, VCP पे वीडियो देखते थे VP Singh, Chandrasekhar and PV Narasimha Rao. Then हाँ, वो दुखी हो जाते थे क्योंकि वो अहिंसा के पुजारी थे। अहिंसा के पुजारी थे और वो आम आदमी में बड़े लोकप्रिय थे। अब इसको अगर करो तो अहिंसा हो गया अटल बिहारी, H is for HD देवगौड़ा, I for is इंद्र कुमार गुजराल, IN इंद्र कुमार गुजराल, सा को छोटा लिखो तो अटल बिहारी, HD देवगौड़ा, इंद्र कुमार गुजराल। उसके बाद फिर आते हैं अटल बिहारी और मनमोहन सिंह और अभी मोदी जी हैं। एक बार पूरी कहानी फिर से याद करने की कोशिश करो। नेहरू के गुजरने का सदमा लाल बहादुर सह नहीं सके। इस दुख की घड़ी में इंदिरा ने देश को संभाला। चौधरी चरण सिंह ने इसमें इंदिरा की पूरी मदद की। एक दिन इंदिरा मर गई या इंदिरा की हत्या हो गई तो राजीव गांधी देश के प्रधानमंत्री बने। वो VCP पे अपनी माँ की मौत का वीडियो देखकर बहुत भावुक हो जाते थे, क्योंकि वो अहिंसावादी आदमी थे और वो आम आदमी में बहुत लोकप्रिय थे। तो एक कहानी अगर याद रखोगे तो मुझे लगता है कि और भी बहुत सारे ट्रिक्स हैं, कभी और बताऊंगा। याद हुआ किसी को? नहीं। अच्छा है, मतलब बहुत इजी है याद करना, तो मुश्किल नहीं है। मतलब नाम तुमको याद ही नहीं करना है, हम लोग एकदम अलग ही चीज याद कर रहे हैं। Do not focus on names. Try to remember the story. This is how this trick works. You just focus on story. नेहरू के गुजरने का सदमा लाल बहादुर सह नहीं सके, वह भी गुजर गए। ऐसी दुख की घड़ी में इंदिरा ने देश को संभाला। ऐसी दुख की घड़ी में इंदिरा ने देश को संभाला। फिर नेक्स्ट लाइन क्या है? चौधरी चरण सिंह ने इंदिरा की पूरी मदद की। एक दिन उनकी हत्या हो गई, इसमें राजीव गांधी प्रधानमंत्री बने। वो VCP पे अपनी माँ की मौत का वीडियो देखकर भावुक हो जाते थे। VCP इज VCP का फुल फॉर्म VP सिंह, चरण सिंह और PV नरसिम्हा राव। तो VCP पे मौत का वीडियो देखकर भावुक हो जाते थे, क्योंकि वो अहिंसावादी आदमी थे। अहिंसा इज अटल बिहारी वाजपेयी, HD देवगौड़ा एंड इंद्र कुमार गुजराल। और वो आम आदमी में बहुत लोकप्रिय थे। तो ये तो बात का तुमको याद ही है, अटल बिहारी, मनमोहन सिंह एंड मोदी। हाँ चंद्रशेखर, सॉरी, चंद्रशेखर ने देश को संभाला। ठीक है। नहीं, चंद्रशेखर ने इंदिरा की मदद की और VCP में चंद्रशेखर है। चंद्रशेखर वॉज नोन एज, अब इसमें तुम देखोगे तो नाउ यू कैन रिकॉग्नाइज द फेसेस एंड द नेम्स। ये है चंद्रशेखर। Now we have a broader meaning of democracy. See, democracy doesn't mean just formation of government. Democracy is a value. Democracy is a method of taking decisions. So democracy, even families can be democratic. Do you think your family is democratic? मोरारजी देसाई का हमने पढ़ा ना, इंदिरा ने देश को संभाला। सो इंदिरा देसाई एंड देन अगेन इंदिरा। तो इंदिरा देसाई और चौधरी चरण सिंह एंड देन अगेन इंदिरा। So democracy is a method of decision making. So democracy is not just for countries. Democracy is for family. Democracy is for every institution. Democracy is about your friendship. Democracy is about relationships where people decisions matters. A democratic person will not impose his will upon others, even in a family or in a relationship. So if we are not if we you do not imbibe or inculcate the value of democracy in your life, if you do not value democracy as a moral principle, then you will not probably value democracy in the country as well. But a true democracy also means that nobody goes hungry to the bed. In a democracy, every citizen must be able to play equal role in decision making. And these are some of the things that we are yet to achieve. Next year, matlab in class 10th, we will again be coming back and evaluating democracy in different ways. This is the end of the chapter. I hope. अच्छा अभी थोड़ा सा और है. Other forms of the government like monarchy, dictatorship, or one party rule do not require all citizens to take part in politics. किसी और सिस्टम में तुम कुछ करो या ना करो, it doesn't matter. But in democracy, the active participation of people is very, very important. If you will not understand and take part in democratic politics, democracy cannot function. But many of you would be saying, sir, I don't like politics. So those who do not like politics, you are probably running away from your duties as a citizen. Politics is everywhere and you cannot run away from politics. Better you know, accept and make it better. कितने लोगों को पॉलिटिक्स पसंद नहीं है? पसंद है पॉलिटिक्स? कितने लोगों को पसंद है पॉलिटिक्स? बाकी rest of you do not have any opinion, like okay, हो सकता है, I don't know what I like, I'm a thing, I'm a chair, I'm not a human being, I don't have any opinion, sir. Nobody had asked about my opinion ever in my life, so how can I give my opinion now? Have opinions. Now the constitutional design. Now, before we have read about Nepal, how Nepal established in its own constitution, made its own constitution. In this class, we will be reading about Africa, South Africa in detail. We have already read why we need constitution and all. एक बहुत ही important सवाल पे तुम लोगों को आज मजेदार जगह पे एंड करते हैं क्लास को. Read this line first. This is said by Mandela. I've fought against white domination. I've fought against black domination. I've cherished the ideal of a democratic free society in which all persons live together in harmony and with equal opportunities. It's an ideal which I'll hope to live for and to achieve. But if needs be, it is an ideal for which I'm prepared to die. Mandela was instrumental in abolition of apartheid from South Africa. Because of him, apartheid ended there. When Africa got its independence, Africa had two options. They could have treated the white people in the same way in which they were treated for all these years. They could have seized all the wealth and the property of the white and forced them to leave their country. And the other way was to live a harmonious life of equality, between blacks and whites. And because of Nelson Mandela, the second path was adopted. And that's why Mandela is saying, I have all through my life, I have lived for equality and harmony, and I'm ready to die for it, even if I have to die. But when I was reading this, how many of you agree with this? Yes, we should be ready to die for our ideals. This can be a essay topic. It's an ideal for which I'm prepared to die. How many of you are ready to die for your ideals? If you truly value something, will you die for it? Do you think that what Bhagat Singh and Chandrasekhar Azad did, they died for their values, right? Even Gandhi died for his value. He could have got Z plus security at that time, but he denied all the securities. He know that he is the prime target of people, but yet he was living. Do you know the story? I don't know how many of you know the story. So Gandhi used to organize this evening prayers, and the forces at that time had certain uh, information that there will be an attempt on his life, and they asked him that let us just have a frisking system at the gate. We will check people for the lethal weapons and all, and then we will allow them to the prayers. What Gandhi said, do you know? He said that it's better for me to die than to suspect anyone और टू फियर फॉर माई लाइफ. कि गांधी अपने जिंदगी के लिए डर गया, ऐसा लोग बोलेंगे तो मुझे क्या लगेगा. लाइक आई एम प्रीचिंग हियर that you should not bother about your life, and I will install security guards and checking system. And he rejected that idea, and that's why he was killed. So he died for his ideal. So I think some of you will die. Now, I love this guy, Barton Russell. This is his famous quote. Read this. I will never die for my beliefs because I might be wrong. Very powerful quote. I will never die for my beliefs because I might be wrong. How many of you agree with Barton Russell now? अब देखो दल बदल नहीं करेगा कोई. कितने लोग दल बदल कर रहे हैं? How many of you agreed with Mandela and now you are agree with Russell as well? This is the power of language. Sometimes we do not even think what we are saying, what we are committing for. Like जैसे ही एक contrasting view आता है तो समझ में आता है कि अरे this is so deep. The people who follow truth does not have such confusion. Who follow truth? That was Barton Russell is saying. I might be wrong. How do you know that whatever you are following is truth? How do you know? So Barton Russell says, I will never die for my beliefs because I might be wrong. Anyway, we will discuss about Russell again. He's a Nobel laureate. He got Nobel Prize for literature for advocating for humanitarianism. So we'll discuss about him. थोड़ा और context है next chapter में. But let us end here and go and reflect back. We'll meet at 3. And Reflect back who you agree with, Mandela or Russell. Bye.